Like my brothers and sisters before me, I recognized that the time was ripe to get up and go. Not knowing what was before me, but understanding that change was imminent, change took me in its wind and pushed me until I was unrecognizable. Swept up in a storm, I spoke as a storm would, letting the rain fall and the lightning strike, and the torrential shifts unearth themselves. And then I lay in the afterglow of its dewy abyss, curious. What part of me would never change? What part of me is undying, everlasting, indestructible? I can sense it, genderless, powerful and bright, unyielding, shape-shifting, effervescent. Warm in this glow, I am radiant, trusting and unafraid. This infinite force inside me, alive and burning. My spirit, my spirit, my spirit. Dance, move, sing, play, bright, no brighter. Let your brightest self shine through. Movement stirring, feline purring, flame igniting, water whirling. I am spirit. Move with me, trust me. Further past the incessant analyzing of your mind, which like any tool can be wrongly used. Can you hear me calling? I am the eternal flame. You can never blow me out. I weep, I scream, I fight for you to hear me. And when you do, we soar like a million birds of flight, all essences merging, flowing in unison. Awaken, dear one, young one, precious stone on earth. Closer to your heart now, you can't ignore me. Moving upwards to your throat, we scream. Like the moon and the stars, we shine together. We create a whole universe, awakened and free. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm so glad that I got to share my hair burning ceremony with you, the fire ceremony that you just watched. I just wanted to, I know that I brought some words out to kind of describe what was going on within me inside while I was filming that ceremony, but I just wanted to take some time to kind of explain to you what the motivation behind creating that ceremony was. I would love it if you could join me for 3 deep breaths. This is just so that we can be present with one another and intentionally decide to share space with one another. So you can either put your hands on your chest or just keep them in an upright position on your lap. And final breath in. Feel it going straight down to your belly and out. Okay, so I've been going through a lot of big shifts and changes and just my own evolution, and I think that due to what's been going on in the world with COVID and this whole pandemic, that a lot of us have had to kind of reconfigure our lives and take a look at ourselves and how we're spending our time and see how truly aligned our actions are with who we are on the inside. It was almost like we were all in this rat race, and we began 2020 with kind of maybe some goals that were aligned with that rat race. And then as soon as COVID came, our whole world shifted, and we kind of realized that the foundations which we rest our lives upon aren't as stable in the sense that we were thinking that they were. And this provided us with a magnificent opportunity to go within and to learn more about ourselves and why we're here in this lifetime. and to try and align our lives more with our inner spirit, more with who we are on the inside, to understand and refine and refine and refine and get to the core essence, to the truth of why we're here and how we can make our lives more aligned with that purpose. And of course, our survival needs must be taken care of. We have to have food, water, and shelter. And so much of what that rat race that we were all caught in was about was meeting those survival needs of food, water, and shelter for many of us. And that is just a situation that a lot of us didn't have much of a choice in. You know, we have to put food on the table. We have to provide for ourselves and our families. You know, how are we going to have time to think about aligning with our soul when our survival needs are not met? So with COVID happening and, you know, the government coming in to provide support for people and people kind of being forced to stay at home and to quarantine themselves, it really provided us with this great opportunity to go within and to learn about ourselves. The situation kind of provided us with not having to run out to work every morning and not think about why and just be caught in your routine, but to pause and to look deeper. When I began to align more with my spirit, well, first I had to learn about my own spirit and what does she look like? When I am fully embodied in my own soul, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm saying? What truly resonates with me? And as I began to discover that, I began to change on the outside. You know, my life started to look different to people who were in my life, basically. And then as I was changing and evolving at such a rapid rate, I don't like to use the word spiritual awakening that much because I do feel like it is very loaded and it kind of refines it so that only certain people can experience it. Only if you label yourself a spiritual person would you understand what a spiritual awakening is. And that's not true by any means. Like, every single person on this earth has experienced a spiritual awakening at some level and in some way. But for lack of a better term, I'm gonna use spiritual awakening for explaining, you know? And when I say that, I just mean realizing exactly what I was talking about with COVID, that the foundations upon which all of your perspectives, mental attitudes, life, the way you view the world, when all of which that rests upon is broken or, you know, changes and shifts, you kind of have this, I'm gonna relate this back to tarot, but it's like the Tower card. It's like this crumbling. Everything you believe to be true isn't true anymore. And how do you cope with that? How do you grab onto something and know that, you know, you're not gonna just disappear, or that there is a reality and a truth that is unchanging? So when I first went through kind of the first part of a spiritual awakening that I was having back in January 2020, I started to get a lot of anxiety because so much of what I knew to be true I was understanding wasn't. And this scared me. This scared me so much because I could feel myself changing into somebody who I didn't necessarily recognize. My interests were changing, what I believed and thought to be true was changing, just so much about me was evolving. And I was so terrified, some part of me was so terrified that the people whom I love and who love me wouldn't love me anymore, because I was gonna be such a different person that they weren't gonna recognize me and they were going to judge me and think that the things that I was doing were strange and that I wasn't the same old Veronica that I once was. And I would essentially push everyone out of my life who was once in my life. So that was terrifying, and I remember just bawling my eyes out and crying on my partner's shoulder and just being like, I'm so scared that, like, you're not gonna love me after this shift, because I can feel myself shifting. And honestly, I have an amazing partner and they just reassured me and were just like, I'm always gonna love you, and don't worry, no matter how much you change, I'm gonna be here. And you know, that turned out to be true, but it didn't necessarily have to be true. So, but I'm glad that I got that reassurance. But I think why I was so terrified at that time was because I didn't have that anchor within myself where I was secure enough to change, because I was grabbing on to things in the material world, to relationships, to a job, to sense of security outside of myself. So when those things were shifting, I felt like I was gonna have nothing to grab onto. But luckily, I did trust in my own spirit and in my guides and the signs that I was receiving, and in myself, really. Like, we use all of these words and terms to talk about our connection with our own selves, which is the most sacred connection of all. And the more that I tuned in with my inner spirit, the more that I realized that it's indestructible, that is the part of me which to anchor to. That is the form, or rather the essence, which shapeshifts and adapts to new forms, but which the essence can never die, can never be broken, is indestructible, is always alive, is always burning bright. Whew. And there is so much beautiful security in that. Beautiful, beautiful security in knowing that I am forever connected to that spirit, that undying spirit. I learned a meditation recently from a mentor that I'm currently working with, and her name is Little Wu, and she's amazing. So I highly suggest that if you are looking for a mentorship for growth, if you really are looking for growth in your life, to check her out, because she's phenomenal. I'll put a link in the description box below. But she did a meditation with me recently. I believe it's called the Eternal Flame. And she had me close my eyes, go into meditation, and, you know, picture this essence kind of as a flame within myself. And just connecting to that flame, which is representative of that essence, which is undying, my spirit. It was just so beautiful, and it held so much meaning, because that flame, not only does it represent something that I am forever anchored to no matter what can be going on in the physical realm, but it also represents my true unique essence. You know, when I am expressing myself in a way that just feels so authentically true to myself, that flame is burning bright, and I am stoking that flame, essentially. And I just realized that I was adopting so many narratives about myself that weren't true unless I was allowing them to be true. And one of those narratives was that I feel that I'm a very playful person who likes to go with the flow and who's very mystical. And, you know, our society doesn't really focus upon those things that much. It really likes to focus on order and structure and logic and intellect, and those are all beautiful things. And look just how far that the intellect has gotten us. I mean, think of an engineer literally building this building that I'm in right now. Like, that part of humanity is so beautiful and important in its own right. But, you know, the part of humanity and the part of ourselves and the part of myself that was really longing for expression was the part of me who is an artist, who is a healer, who spends time in devotion to spirit and in devotion to the creator that is within us all and that is within every living thing in our universe. And a narrative that I was telling myself was that I was flaky, I was inconsistent, you know, all of these things that I could feel that some people would maybe think about me, or who knows, maybe nobody was thinking that about me at all. But in my head, I had told myself that, you know, that's what people think of me. If I change, people are gonna think I'm flaky and inconsistent. that girl just goes with the flow to the point where she doesn't have a true identity. She's just, adapting to that which is around her and is just so moldable. And I recently banished that idea completely because it's not true. It's simply not true. And we can spend so much of our time worrying about what people think. And for example, with that narrative that I was holding on to, I didn't even realize it as worrying about what people think. It was truly what I was believing about myself. It was part of my identity, and I was making it a part of my identity. And it's not easy. The hardest thing, the most difficult thing, no matter how much we try to be self-aware and we throw ourselves into these self-development practices, to see, those narratives that we are truly giving energy to and believing about ourselves that are hindering our soul and our spirit from their purpose. So anyways, that was one huge thing. I've been going through these changes and just learning what part of myself is undying and will forever be there, and learning what parts of myself that I can really eject and let go of. Just think of a snake, how it sheds its skin. It's constantly shedding this skin and morphing and transforming, but it is still forever itself. And another narrative that I have been adopting recently, and who knows, this is something that really aligns with me right now, really resonates with me right now, and speaks true to my current experience, but who knows, maybe in a year from now it won't. And that's okay, and that doesn't mean that I was wrong at this time or that I'm inconsistent for having one belief that changes. Another thing is really recognizing the multidimensionality of who we are and holding a place within us for all of the polarities and dualities in this world, and knowing that they are all existing and all true, even though that they're at other ends of the spectrum. All of that to say that another narrative that I have really been adopting recently that feels right with where I'm at right now is focusing on my North and South Node in my astrological birth chart. So my North Node is in Sagittarius and my South Node is in Gemini. And your North Node is supposed to represent your good karma in this lifetime, in this incarnation. And your South Node is supposed to represent the energy that you really embodied in your last lifetime. So you've kind of learned that lesson of that specific sign that your South Node is in, and now you're supposed to, in this incarnation, move towards your North Node and learn the essence of that sign. So my South Node is in Gemini, which means in my last life I learned how to really acquire a lot of information constantly from my environment and my community, and to use that information to understand people, and to use that information so that in my understanding of people, I adapted to those people and was able to kind of reflect back to them themselves and morph myself so that I could be, in some sense, the center of my community. But in this lifetime, I'm supposed to move away from that Gemini energy and into the Sagittarius energy. And while the Gemini energy is so much about collecting information, it's almost about all the parts of the whole. So collecting, like looking closely at all of the different parts and collecting them, collecting information. But moving into the Sagittarius energy is like zooming out and just seeing the whole for what it is, not focusing on the little parts and gathering all the information. As you probably know, Gemini is an air sign. It's very airy and it's mutable. And going into Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, it's so much more connected to the spirit. It's about moving forward and making decisions by connecting with your spirit and your intuition and your gut instinct, and making the decision based on that, and constantly moving forward making decisions like that, rather than making decisions by analyzing, constantly picking up bits of information and muting and transmuting myself to adapt to everybody else's truth and reflect it back to them, and to, you know, get along with people in that way. So now, while moving towards my Sagittarius North Node, I am to find my own voice that stands apart from the truth of all of those people around me, to align with my own intuition, to speak my truth and to be my own individual, and to have truly my own identity that is cultivated from my own spirit, from my own energy, from that own, you know, essence and undying flame that I talked about, that is within each of us, that is our spirit. This body is just a vessel in this incarnation. In this incarnation, I get to have this body, these eyes and hands and face and, you know, relationships and home and parents, which is amazing. I'm so happy. Like I'm really glad about this incarnation that I have in this life. But that incarnation is mutable, is changeable, is transforming constantly. We age, we get wrinkles, we get old, we die. And that essence is what lives on. So I am really trying to get in touch with that essence right now, and to let that flame and that essence shine through and burn bright in my life. Another great example that my mentor Little Wu shared with me is that when you look at one of your favorite artists, and one of my favorite artists is Lana Del Rey. She's a muse of mine. And I really don't care how much I sound like any typical like girl saying like, oh my god, I love Lana, but like I fucking love Lana. Okay? And she was saying, look at one of your favorite artists, like their music changes, their style changes, like their musical style as well as their personal style. So much about them, you know, transforms. Or another artist whom I love so much is Rihanna. And you know, Rihanna changes her hair, her style, her body, like so much about her changes, but yet something shines through Lana and Rihanna that we see and we love, and that's their spirit, that's their soul. Their soul shines through in their work and their artistry, and that's what we love about them. If you love an artist, then you're likely loving their soul. Something about their spirit is resonating with yours. I am really in a place right now of letting myself kind of chameleon and change and transform in moving closer to that essence, in moving closer to that spirit. So something that I really had to make peace with is that as I am taking a step forward closer to my own spirit, each step closer, something about myself in the physical realm might change in a more significant way than we normally recognize, because ultimately we are all always changing, whether we consciously decide to or not. Like I mentioned, we're aging, the world is changing, which we really got a real wake-up call with that this year in 2020. This more conscious effort moving towards more of a like spirit shining life. I had to make peace with the fact that people are going to think what they're going to think. I had to make peace with the fact that although it looks like I am moving away from something, I am actually moving towards something that is a lot more true and authentic to who I am on the inside. And yes, I am moving away from something, but what I am moving away from is something that was never really me. It was, you know, programs that were literally downloaded into my brain by, you know, society, by my family, by our culture, but like so much of it. And I'm not even deeming that bad or good, because I don't see it as bad or good. It just is what it is. It's a narrative. They're narratives that I adopted over time, but they weren't coming from within. They were coming from without. And now I am really trying to adopt narratives that are way more closely related to or coming directly from my own inner spirit, my own essence, my own soul. So that fire burning ceremony was just a way of just me cutting my hair was just a way of releasing an old self. And a lot of people do this, they'll dye or cut their hair in order to kind of solidify the fact that they're changing on the inside, and maybe that was a part of that, but also part of it was just changing up my look and making my look match that vivacious, vibrant, radiant energy that's on the inside for me, and I just felt that. So step 1 was cutting my hair. Step 2 was looking at that and realizing that in that hair was all of those parts of me that I kind of had adopted that weren't really a part of me. And taking back my power by aligning with that part of me that is my own unique blueprint and isn't just, a program downloaded from something outside of myself, and throwing that into the fire and watching it burn. And truly cultivating my own energy and liberating myself from all of those beliefs that I had about myself that just were not serving my spirit. So yes, I am on a very exciting journey right now. I've never felt more like my true self, but also I've never felt so different from what I was, because I felt like I was just carrying so much baggage that I've released and that's been let go. And now underneath it all is just this green fairy illuminated spirit that can finally fly because it doesn't have all of this baggage attached. I want to thank you for listening and for holding space for my truth at this time and for honoring my journey by watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I'm really thankful that I get to share this part of myself and this current stage that I'm going through right now with you. It feels very Sagittarius and North Node to speak about my experience and be able to share it with an audience. So thank you for being a part of that audience. And if you watch this video, there was certainly a reason why, and I really hope that some part of what I said really called out to that eternal flame that is within you and that part of your own spirit that burns bright and is completely undying. Thank you.